Well, welcome everyone to our fireside chat today. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a fireside chat with Nicole from How to Manage here in partnership with Wizehire, and we'll be talking about the art and science of hiring right the first time. Um, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Actually, before I jump there, let me just give you a little bit of context on what the next 45 minutes are going to look like. So we will have a conversation for the next 30 minutes or so. We will aim to save about 15 minutes at the end for questions. So feel free to drop any questions you have using the Q&A button at the bottom. They'll either be answered live or written at the end of the session. And if we don't have enough time, depending on the number of questions, if we don't have enough time to get to everything during the call, we will definitely be sure to follow up. So to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Carmen Bryant. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Wizehire. I have been here for 2 years, and it's been a phenomenal time of growth and learning and insight. And it's also really phenomenal because it really aligns with my passions. I am really focused on thinking about how we can democratize opportunity for more job seekers, making sure that they have the full breadth of opportunities at their disposal. And I also am really interested in the B2B marketing side, specifically as it relates to small and growing businesses and how to make sure that they can hire the transformational talent that they need with ease and what we can do to make that match. Before I was at Wizehire, I actually spent 6 years at Indeed leading their US marketing business. At the time, there was a particular focus on B2B marketing. So these are some of the problems that I've been thinking about for some time now. And I'm really excited to be here to talk a little bit about some of the things that we do and that we've learned at Wizehire. But the real star, I believe, of the next 45 minutes is my partner in crime for the next 45 minutes, Nicole Hanscomb from How to Manage a Small Law Firm. Nicole, why don't you share a bit about your background with the folks on the call?
Well, thank you. And yes, we are partners in crime, at least for the next 45 minutes. Hi, I'm Nicole Hanscomb. I'm the Director of Special Projects for How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And I've actually been with How to Manage a Small Law Firm. I keep losing count because I've been there as an advisor working hand in hand with our members, and I was a member before I joined How to Manage the internal team. But they just fit so well. My life's mission. I have worked with lawyers since I was 16 years old, either worked for them or helped them and supported them in how to run businesses. I spent more than a decade at the public defender's office in Tampa and then traveling around to many public defender's offices throughout the state of Florida. So I've done super big law, like 60,000 cases, 70,000 cases a year, 400 employees. And I've done super small law, me and my assistant, and pretty much everything in between. And it is my mission. It is what I do to help entrepreneurs, specifically law entrepreneurs, to build epic businesses so they can change their lives and the lives of the people that they help.
Phenomenal.
So that's what we do.
Yeah, I've had such a great time talking to you and getting to learn from you and all that you know about the legal hiring experience. And so I think this is going to be a great conversation for the folks on the call. You've already shared a bit about the extensive experience you have when it comes to legal hiring and the fact that you have such a set of unique point of views when it comes to legal hiring. I'd love to start a bit more broadly to just get a sense of what are some of the biggest hiring misconceptions you've encountered with law firms and legal hiring.
One of the several, but one of the biggest misconceptions that I think I see, especially working with small business owners, small law firm owners, anything less than, say, already 20 lawyers is considered a small law firm. Um, is that you can't hire people who are already really good, is that you can't hire people who have experience, and that it's better, maybe better, cheaper, faster, to hire somebody without experience and train them up your way. And that is going to be better, faster, cheaper than hiring somebody who's got some experience and who's got the experience that you need for them to have. We can actually help you grow so much faster and make money to run your business and money for your firm and help more people faster if you do a little bit more vetting and hold out and get somebody with some experience.
Yeah.
And I know you also deal with hiring all day and working in this arena. What are, just curious, what are
Yeah.
some of the challenges that you're hearing about or that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's the law firms that we work with, we do tend to hear a few of the same things quite often. One is just that there's not enough qualified applicants, right? Like they are, trying to find folks that have passed the bar in their state. I know we have I know you're based in Florida and there's a couple of people on the call from Florida. I know Florida is a very competitive market. We do a lot of work there. And so we hear that, especially when we're talking to law firms in Florida. The market is very competitive. It's competitive outside of legal, but for sure in legal. And there's always a time crunch. So to your point, there's often not enough vetting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it is, we spend a lot of time. We have coaches and hiring experts on staff who are really designed and here for the purpose of helping folks um, make sure that they have a great hiring process, right? So that they can do all the vetting that they need. And then the other thing that's pretty interesting is that sometimes there is like this old school approach of always wanting to communicate via phone.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and so we do I think spend more time than you might expect, you know, either trying to, think about how to navigate this new world of, all the digital and online communication and how to leverage that, or thinking about how to adapt it so that it's going to be amenable to, you know, being suitable for the array of different candidates they're trying to bring into the pipeline. So in general, we hear the mix of quality and quantity.
Mm-hmm.
In legal, there are, those additional nuances and the time and the vetting and, just trying to not just get a body, but get that transformational talent that folks are looking for.
Yeah,
Um,
that understanding that a warm body does not necessarily
yeah,
equal
yeah.
your ideal candidate.
And there is data out there that talks about the cost, of a bad hire too. So you think you've got a body, it's going to be great, and it's not. And one of the things, like you and I have talked about this a little bit, but you had, I thought, such an interesting insight when we were talking about this idea of A players versus C players,
Mhm.
uh, and and what that means. And I'd love to hear a bit about why you think so many firms struggle to find that top tier transformational talent, what they can do to overcome it. And it'd be great if you can elaborate a little bit on this concept of A players versus C players.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm going to start with A players versus C players. And it goes all the way to F. If you guys remember school, it's been a while for some of us. Others just very recently got out of school. But so A, B, C, D, F, and that's how I like to think about it. And people think, oh, F players are the most, damaging to your organization. And I'm here to actually say it's probably the C players. So if you have somebody, like, we can identify who our A players are. They are the in the hiring world, we call them what? We call them rock stars and superstars and unicorns. And they're the people who show up, they get your mission, they're on board with their value, with the values, they have the skills that you need, they have the attitude that you want. They're just like dynamic. That like you just used the word transformational, right? That's what they are for your organization. B players are probably those players, two types of B players. Maybe their skills aren't exactly where you need them to be. Maybe they've got a lot of good experience. They've got certainly the attitude that you need to have, but maybe what they need is some skills refinement, some upskilling. C players, surprisingly, might have the same skill level as A players. C players fly under the radar because they never annoy you or make you mad enough or F up bad enough to really get on the radar. But what they do is they've got great skills and they've got a horrible attitude. Maybe they're probably passive aggressive. They are probably grumbling about things. They'll probably do their work and keep their mouth shut, but roll their eyes. They're not big on the concept of team. They're lone wolves, right? And they never quite annoy you enough to where you want to fire them because you're believing that, okay, there's this warm body. And as long as they're there doing the work, then it's good enough for now. And what I have found is that the more C players you tolerate, because it is tolerating, the more C players you tolerate, the fewer A players you will find, and the fewer A players you will get, because you start to forget what an A player looks like. And the A players in your business leave because everything falls to C level. So it's interesting that A players don't necessarily always raise the bar throughout your organization. What happens more often is that C players lower it enough that everybody just meets at that common level. So when I'm talking about A, B, C, F players, they're not dangerous to your organization because they're easy to spot. You know the F players, you get them out of there. You F players who show up in interviews are easy to spot and easy to not hire. So it's really making a decision for yourself that you want A players and that you want to be the kind of place where A players want to work. And when you make that decision, it becomes much easier to do the things you were talking about at the beginning of your question, which is how do you hire them? How do you find them?
Yeah,
I hope that answered. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was I don't know about other folks, but as you were talking, I was having flashbacks and how I could have probably used some of this amazing insight, decades ago. On that note, do you think that there are clear ways to identify that C player, or A player, but I guess I'm thinking
Yeah.
like how to spot them, especially as you say that their skills are often at the same level. And I think the hard skills, I will say I found that hard skills are typically a lot easier to identify. It's a little bit more black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those other things are much more challenging. Do you have any thoughts on how to sort of spot that?
Unfortunately, I don't have a magic pill. There's no magic formula. It takes time, it takes work, because the resume of a C player looks just like the resume of an A player. And that C player, when they show up for their telephone interview with you, is going to present as an A player. And when they show up for that in-person interview with you, that C player is probably trying their best to like mind their P's and Q's and show up as an A player. So anything that we can do to add in more touches, more contacts, more conversations, more vetting. I know Wizehire uses like a disc profile.
Mhm.
Anything that How to Manage is use predictive index. We use Colby. I've used several throughout different phases of my hiring career. Anything that we can do to give them more opportunity to show you who they are,
Yeah.
right? And then it's so important to have an onboarding phase that we don't just like smack them on the butt and say, go get him, Tiger. Here's your files, go to court. That you sit with them and get to know them and continue the interview now that they think they've got it. Because we recruit for and we hire employees, and then people show up to work. And eventually they get comfortable enough to stop always putting their best foot forward, and the C player starts to show up. There's a lot of questions I like to ask during the interview process to give people the opportunity to show me who they are. I like to, oh, look, that just popped up in the chat. Any questions during an interview that you could spot an A player or a C player? I like to give them the opportunity to talk about their former bosses. I like to give them the opportunity to tell me about what would your, the person who supervised you, not the head of HR, not the head of your department, but like the person who had the hands-on supervision of you from day to day, if there was one. What would they tell me about you? That question sends people into a frenzy because they can either load it up with really good stuff and talk really well about the team that they worked with, or if they're this kind of C player person with a bad attitude, it gives them the opportunity to tell you all of the reasons why their former supervisor was a dodo, and why they shouldn't be believed. And so there's that golden opportunity. There's a few other questions that I like to tailor, and I think people should tailor depending on the culture that they're building in the firm and the culture fit that they need to hire for. So I would find out what kind of culture do you want to build, and then I would ask lots of questions of this person to zero in on, do they fit that?
Yeah. Yeah, that is, yeah, I think I've also had reflections when, you've hired a C player and then you have an opportunity to reflect back and think about, are there questions that I could have asked during the process that might have given me a little bit more insight into this? Like, it's always, hindsight is 20, but I do find that though that's often like a great moment of reflection. That also, I think, is, one of the things that we spend a lot of time, I'm sure everybody spends a lot of time thinking about, are like job descriptions. And as we think about trying to attract, the highest quality talent, how do you think about how folks should be writing their job descriptions in order to do that? Like, what is the role that plays there?
So I think the job description is where everything starts. And I think that what's the next most important step, so you do your job description, you set your key performance indicators, the job description to me is like the legal document, right? It's do they get overtime protection? How many hours a week do they work? Who's their manager? What are the exact functions that we want them to do? And then you take that job description and you go to somebody like Wizehire, and you create a job ad, a job posting. And I think you and I have talked about this a couple times. I think, and I know you agree, that recruitment of employees and marketing for new clients, they're like cousins, maybe sisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same concept. So you would sit down, then you would take that job description and you would turn it into an ad, into a job posting that speaks to your ideal candidate. And something that I think small business owners don't do enough is talk about, one, why it's great to work for us. What's in it for you, job seeker, to come work with us? And so really play that up. There are so many benefits of small law. There are so many great things. And I've worked with, I'm going to say in the past 8 years, I've worked with more than 1,000 small business owners at how to manage a small law firm. and they're great people. It helps because How to Manage a Small Law Firm has a no assholes policy. So we only have great people who become members. And you guys are good people to work for. And I've worked in enough big law that I don't know that you realize how stressful and tense it can be to work in big law like that with so many big personalities and so many different concerns. So I think you play up how great it is to work for you and talk to your ideal candidate about what's in it for them to come work for you. You know, that's what A players are looking for. A players, and I know we've talked about this, and people want to talk about the market. Why is it so hard to find good talent? And I'm going to say this might be one of the hardest markets that we've seen in a while, except it's always been hard to find A players because there aren't that many. They're usually employed. Your A players are really out there looking for, I know I can work anywhere. It's like Southwest Airlines. You could have flown many airlines. We thank you for flying with us today. They know that they can get a job pretty much anywhere. They're looking for their next A+ employer. They're looking for where they fit and where they see their future being a better place. So when you do a job ad that just slaps up some job responsibilities, it doesn't really speak to them. So using some, like, creating that job ad and getting it out there in a place where you can show your personality, show your culture, talk about what's great for you, that's going to speak to your A player. That's going to speak to the people who really want to come work with you and help you build your team.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's a big difference between that legal document that you might use for internal purposes and like we call it an ad because it's in marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're trying to attract folks. And, if I love the point you made about small law firms versus like the larger, like the big firms. If folks are trying to figure out what is great about your firm, I would think about who are the people that are really successful there now, who's your ideal candidate or your ideal employee, and ask them why they like working,
Yeah.
and take that information and incorporate it into your job ad. Just as I suspected, I knew time was going to fly by. But I want to save plenty of time for folks to ask questions, and we can continue to ask questions, but I want to get like maybe a couple more in before we open it up. And one is as we talk about, A players and trying to get quality talent, there's also just the fact that sometimes there's just not enough applicants. We hear
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm sure it can feel very restrictive when you have a lot of requirements that you're trying to meet for specific roles. What are some ways you've advised firms on how they can fill their talent pipeline? What's the best way for folks to do that?
I have two. One is always be sourcing.
Hmm.
Never, like we say, never take the foot off marketing, never take your foot off the gas. Never stop looking for your next great teammate. Never stop looking for your next great addition. Always be sourcing. Um, when I was at the PD's office running their ops, we interviewed all the time, even if we didn't need attorney candidates, even if we had a full slate of receptionists. We had a regular recruitment and interviewing schedule, and we even got to develop what was called a ready pool. We had a ready pool of applicants, people we had interviewed, people we wanted to interview, and we could always go to that. And the other thing I learned is that aside from lawyers, there's a few positions in a law firm that I gotta look at your I gotta look at your history, your experience, and it's got to be directly applicable. Lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers. Most other positions in a law firm, I don't necessarily need legal experience in order to think you're a great candidate. There's some other industries out there that you can go fishing in, and that you can start sourcing in that are direct, the skills are very transferable into a law firm environment. You know, if you think about people who have worked with insurance, any professional services, insurance, even engineering, computer science, consulting, um, medical field, uh, and if you're looking, you know, those people can make great additions to your team. Um, if you're looking, when I was looking for receptionists, when I was looking for client care representatives, even now when I'm helping members in how to manage decide on resumes, if I see somebody has retail or hospitality experience, I want to talk to them, because there's no more proof. There's no more proof that you can give my clients great customer service than if you can survive like Black Friday. Um, without causing an altercation. I think those are great transferable skills when it comes to customer service, and when it comes to being an assistant, and when it comes to managing a calendar and managing multiple priorities. So I look a lot and I source a lot in different industries that have very transferable skills.
I think that's really smart and makes so much sense, especially given where the market is right now. Like we don't want to be limited. We want to be really sort of open but strategic, about
Yes.
where we are, getting candidates from. I'm going to ask this last question before we open it up for more from folks on the call. If we have time for others, I might ask a couple more, but I wanted to end by talking about retention because we've talked a lot about attracting candidates and having folks at the ready, but I think one of the things that we hear about from the folks that we work with is about, especially when it comes to lawyers, is burnout. And so not only are you trying to hire, you are constantly trying to hire the same position over and over again. So I'd love to sort of like wrap it up for this portion to get your thoughts on retention and like what are some ways that firms can do a better job with retaining, you know, quality candidates, whether it's in how they find them or how they keep them.
That's such a great question. So I think, and again, I've not mastered any of this, right? I hire people and they leave. People who come work with you are going to be with you for as long as they see their life being better because you're in it.
Hmm.
And so one of the things when I talk with small law firm owners, when I'm helping small law firm, when I'm helping my husband who's building his business and he's trying to hire, he's completely different industry, manual labor, and he's trying to hire people. Um, One of the things that we talk about when we're looking at small businesses, get get off the bat right away, hire people who are good with growth,
Mm.
and from a lot of aspects. That's people who want to grow personally themselves. But growth means change. And so you've got to hire people who run headlong into change, who embrace it, not people who will tolerate it. Because you'll find out that people who tolerate change um, are probably going to keep you stuck at the level that you're at.
Mm.
And when you start to make changes in your business, they're going to be some of the first to leave. So people who embrace change and embrace growth and can be flexible, I think is really critical for small businesses, small law firms included. Those people typically do stick around a little longer because as a small law firm, as a small business, you're changing enough inside that their need for change and their love for change is still satisfied, right? Um, and then I think in order to keep your A+ employees, you've got to be an A+ employer.
Mm.
And that might mean benefits, but yes, it means benefits. Um, but it also but defining what those benefits are for your people and for what the group you're building, the community you're building. For some, it's going to be education. For some, it's going to be the ability to grow themselves. For some, it's going to be maybe flexibility. For, figure out what your folks need. Have real conversations with them. Treat them like people, not files. People, not things. And you will start to, I don't want to use them, and you'll start to build your community. You'll start to build your team. I think getting rid, sorry, sometimes you have to fire people. We call it addition through subtraction. And so sometimes you have to make the decision to eliminate your C-level employee, so that you can make room for an A-level employee. And that's what I see a lot as reason for turnover, is that people come in, they're very excited, they're ready to contribute to the team, and then they notice the averageness that's being tolerated around them, and they think that's going to be me in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. That's not, like, that doesn't help up level me. So when you hire somebody who wants to grow and change and learn, and then surround them with people who are not growing and not changing and not learning, they don't stay. I think it speaks to culture, right? What's the culture that you're looking to build? And if you guys are looking to grow, then you're going to build a culture of growth. And you've got to hire people who love that and who want to stay there with that.
I love that. I mean, it's so is, as we talk, all of us, I'm sure, have hired and understand the challenges. And, I think I certainly have gotten some really just helpful tips in this conversation that I think even translate outside of legal hiring. When you were talking about growth, when we had a conversation about growth before, and you were like, they have to run headlong into it. You have to sort
Yes.
of that they will embrace it. And if they use words like tolerate change, accept change, is
Okay with it.
okay with it, I can deal with it. It's like,
As long as it doesn't get crazy.
and it's like, yeah, that was not going to be a fit. So
And it works at scale too. When I was working at the public defender's office, we, like, 300 employees, 100 of them were lawyers. And when we started, 20% turnover. So you want to talk about people coming, people going. And, when we decided we were going to change the face of the public defender's office in Florida, that's the group of PDs that I worked with wanted to change the face of the public defenders in Florida. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of people. And I know the folks on the call today are probably like dozens and dozens of people, or building that team. It still works. Like, these techniques work at big scale and they work at small scale, because what we're talking about is people and the behavior of people. And a culture of change and growth can be super big and excite people, and at small can be really important to people and still really excite people. So it's that I think is the one thread that I have found over the past, I'm not going to tell you how many decades. That is the constant. If you hire people who want to grow and you build a culture of growth, that stays constant.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Let's open it up for a few questions from folks. So if you have questions, please feel free again to drop them in the Q&A button. There is one in here. I'll read it.
Okay.
I have an associate who likes to learn, likes to work, does whatever I ask him to do, stays late without complaining, is good at researching and writing, but he has been an attorney for a little less than 3 years, so he cannot get me out of production as I need to review everything he does, and he does not have enough litigation experience to handle cases on his own. Where would you rank him? A, B, etc. player?
It's good. Okay. I'm a recovering lawyer. I'll let everyone know. But I'm going to give you the lawyer answer that you're all going to roll your eyes at. And I'm going to say, it depends. It depends on your firm, and it depends on the systems that you have in your firm. At the public defender's office, when I had a full-time trainer and I had an automated onboarding system and I had frontline managers who didn't have any, who had a significantly reduced caseload and no responsibilities really other than training up their newly barred lawyers. I don't use the term baby lawyer, training up their newly barred lawyers. That's an A player for me. It's somebody who wants to be trained, who's willing to commit, and who I have the resources to support. If you see that lawyer, if you don't see them as freeing you up from production, if you see them as an obligation rather than an opportunity, if you don't have a training system, or if you're not a good trainer, you might be taking a B-level employee and burning them. So it's going to be for your firm, for the infrastructure that you have in place, and for the amount of time that you are willing to invest in them. Can you train up a B player into an A player? Yes, you can. Is it a consensual relationship that requires them to be coached and you to coach, and them to learn and you to teach? Yes. And does it take time? Yes. And is it time that you might be willing to invest? I don't know. And so I think you have to decide for yourself, how much time and energy do you have to invest? And are you doing this person a service or a disservice? Is it better to let them go get trained up somewhere else and then come back to you once they have all the skills that they need?
So so I guess what I'm hearing is that this person might be a B player who has the potential to be an A player, but it comes down to whether or not, this person has the infrastructure, the resources, the time,
Yeah.
the sort of like consensual sort of like dynamic to actually up level this person.
And usually that's what we're lacking when we're first built, like when we're building a team, when we're building a business, when we're lacking that first, the infrastructure, and second, the time.
Yeah.
And then that person starts to feel like an obligation more than an opportunity. And that's when we do an active disservice. We need to help them maybe go succeed elsewhere.
Yeah. I think the next question could be, I like it, it's a little spicy. How can you let go of a C player who is flying under the radar and they are part of a union?
I don't think I know the answer to that. It would, in Florida, there's not a lot of union, but we do have like civil service within some of the government agencies. And for us, it was about documentation, 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 documentation. When I learned I was a horrible manager. I got so much better. When I learned that you can't manage people based on personality, you have to manage them on their performance, their attendance, and their conduct. And so I couldn't really counsel somebody, or you can't hire people on personality either. They're called personality hires and they never work out. You have to talk about the conduct. So you can set rules about how to show up, how to behave when you're talking with your fellow employees, how to behave when you're talking with clients. That gossiping and eye rolling and giving people the cold shoulder are unacceptable ways to act at work. And then you can document when they violate that. You can document when they go astray of that. You can coach them back in the right direction. Sometimes people decide it's just not worth it to them to keep getting your corrective feedback day over day over day, and they decide to go succeed elsewhere. And sometimes it's not worth it. You can no longer invest in that corrective contact day over day over day, and we have to help them find a way to go succeed somewhere else. The union throws in a wrench that I'm not so sure I'm qualified to talk about.
Yeah, that's I wish I could speak to unions as well. I do like the um sort of suggestion of documentation, whether there's documentation. You said conduct, performance, and what was the third one?
Attendance.
Attendance, yes. The documentation there, and probably making sure that documentation of those types of expectations are outlined too. So when they're
Mhm.
stepping out of line, you can not just sort of document that they're stepping out of line, but that this is something that has been clearly communicated to them.
Yeah, and when
So,
you're having a feedback conversation with your boss every single day, like, I think part of it is just is not tolerating it in the moment, and it's calling it out as you see it. And hey, can we have a conversation about that eye roll? Can we can we have a conversation about how you don't look anyone in the eye when you talk to them? Like whatever it is that makes them a C player. Um, every time you see it, talk about it. Every time you see it, give them feedback. Ask if they would be willing to be coached. Ask if they would be willing to learn the new skills that they need. Like get their buy-in to change. And maybe that would be, that would probably be where I would start. The second place I would start is with an employment lawyer who can absolutely let me know what my rights and obligations are and what their rights and obligations are under the union. Is I would go see a lawyer who who can let me know all about that and who can help me with my strategy.
um, we are you open to answering one more question,
Yeah, of
Nicole?
course.
So we'll take our last question from Nicole. The C player and A player, man. I found that so like engaging too. We have two C player employees who are costly to the firm in salary and mistakes. If we let go of them, we don't have enough employees to cover their position during the letting go and finding a new employee. How would you navigate this?
I would start looking now.
Mm.
I would look now for their replacements. I would start having feedback conversations with them now about their salary and their mistakes. I would start talking now about how much they're costing the firm in terms of rework, refunds, whatever the mistakes are. I would start talking now about renegotiating their salary to be more performance based and less rewarding them for making mistakes. Um, and I would calculate, I bet you're not as urgent to find their replacement because at least you have their warm body there. And so I would bet that once you separate from them, you you get more intentional about finding that new employee and about finding that replacement. I bet you're not going to have a gap for as long as you think you are. And then um, once you terminate them, go sit in their desk and go through their stuff and find all of the mistakes that they made that haven't made it onto your radar yet. And then congratulate yourself on letting them go before they cost you even more money and more mistakes. And the rest of your team will thank you because whatever you think you're covering, they're covering more.
Mm.
And then you meet with the team after the conversation to let them know that they've been allowed to go succeed elsewhere. And you say, we've got a rally. I'm going to pick up a little extra. We've got to pick up a little extra to get the work. Maybe you have to raise your rates to cover the pipeline. I don't know what these positions are. But if you want to let them go, we'll find a way to make it happen. And the rest of the team finds a way to rally, and you get way more intentional about finding their replacement once they're gone than when they're sitting in the seat. So I think I said you just have to let them go.
Yeah, yeah. You were like, you gotta do it, you gotta do it. Nicole, thank you so much for joining. I, took away a lot myself, and was taking notes. For everyone on the call, we will be sharing the recording of this conversation with you. There's also going to be a short survey that you'll get when you leave the webinar. So please fill it out. Let us know what you'd like to see next time. And for your efforts, we're going to be sharing the how to manage hiring process with you that Nicole put together. And it's a step-by-step guide to filling a position, from evaluating the role, creating the job description, screening candidates, so forth and so on, that we think will be super helpful for all of you. So
Yeah, I'm a COO at heart, so I can't come and not leave gifts for people.
and you left many, many on the call. So thank you everyone for your time and for your attention. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Nicole. Bye everyone.
Bye, everybody.